What's up, hackers? Welcome to Saturday Hacker Day. My name is Taggart, and today we are going to have kind of a chill day. This is going to be the last stream before our fall break. So the stream's going to take a time out for 2 weeks. But before we do that, I wanted to have a nice fun day, just kind of hang out with the group and maybe do some Kerbal Space Program. But before we do that, we have some interesting cyber news to get to. Two stories that are worth talking about before we kick back. So first, we have a little bit of breaking news. The Black Reward hacking group has yesterday, I believe it didn't take long, threatened or claimed that they had breached Iranian nuclear government facilities systems, and yeah, it was yesterday. And were threatening to release publicly sensitive data if their demands were not met. These demands were in line with freeing political prisoners that were supporting the Masa Amini protests that are currently going on in Iran, in which we've talked about here on this stream. In fact, we even set up signal proxies in support of those protests to help undermine the authoritarian regime in Iran. Well, so this effort appears to be related to the same movement. And rather than waiting however many days they had originally said they were going to wait, they have dumped that information on the internet. They have put it in their Telegram group. If you are a Telegram user, you can look for black_reward, and you can find that public Telegram group and get the sample data, which I have done. And so before we dive into the Kerbal Space Program today, we're going to take a look at this data just to see what it's all about. At first glance, there are samples, even in just the public sample, there's a massive dump as well that I didn't feel like downloading. But even in the public sample, which is about 118 megs, I'm seeing bills of materials, I'm seeing emails. They're all in Farsi, so I cannot read them. But I'm also seeing, insanely, visa applications for Russian citizens. Which, given the news about Iranian drones being used in the war in Ukraine, that seems a little suspicious. And, one wonders what's going on between... I don't want to go to tinfoil hat. I would just say that it is of concern that this group of documents that has to do with Iranian nuclear facilities involves entities from Russia, two nuclear states, right? Or one hopeful nuclear state, I would say, and one definitely nuclear state in terms of strategic nuclear weapons. So we'll be getting into that in just a moment. But the other piece of news that I thought was really interesting from this week was Microsoft's mishandling of customer data and then their absolutely ham-fisted response to it. So a report from SOC Radar came out this week indicating that they had discovered an insecure Azure blob storage container that contained customer data from thousands and thousands of different customers. And the kinds of data ranged from names, addresses, email addresses, some payment information according to SOC Radar. And there were also claims that involved email discussions of potential security postures for these organizations. All of this was named Blue Bleed by SOC Radar, and a report and a Have I Been Pwned-esque search engine to see if your domain was involved in the breach was released. Microsoft took exception to that. Now, this was in communication with MSRC, the Microsoft Security Response Center, but apparently there were some differences of opinion about how this breach should have been handled. Microsoft took exception to a number of things, one of which was the search engine itself, which has since been taken down. But they also took exception to the counts of the number of businesses that were in the breach. They believe that SOC Radar overcounted by a significant factor. Now, SOC Radar has since responded to that accusation and said Microsoft is counting subsidiary organizations as one organization, and we are not. And that's one of the reasons for the differences in numbers. I feel like this is is grasping at straws. I don't know what the right idiom is here. They're missing the forest for the trees in that a bunch of customer data was breached because Azure storage containers are still to this day insecure by default, right? And you have to make sure that you're setting things up correctly. And it's so counterintuitive into how you do it that the very inventors of the technology did not know how to do it correctly, or did not take the time and care to do it correctly. I would not say that the information that I've seen from the breach has been particularly sensitive. So the bigger story, honestly, Streisand style, is the fact that Microsoft was trying to downplay this. They had to essentially be forced in public to communicate the issue. They first did so via a blog post that was buried in the MSRC blog. And then after that, they were kind of forced into a position of saying, okay, for 2 weeks, you can submit a ticket and ask about the data that you have in there. And I've seen public reports of representatives from Microsoft representatives being less than forthcoming about what customer data for that specific organization was involved in the breach. So it's yet another one of those situations where it's very often the case. MSRC does a lot of good work, but they very often, especially when there's a public disclosure like this, they really try to downplay it. And time again, it starts to come off as though their interest is not in security, but in the reputation of the organization, which is true. But when you're posturing yourself as a security first entity within Microsoft, that's not always the best look. All right. So as I said, we're going to take a look at, we're going to play some Kerbal Space Program today. But before we do that, let's just take a quick look over here at the Black Reward dump, just to see what kind of stuff is in here. I thought this might be interesting to see, just before we dive in. Hey, Mr. Either, thank you so much for the follow. Let's get some tunes going. All right. Now, as I said, I have the dump here. Here it is for all of us to see. So, as you can see, there's a lot of PDFs. There's a lot of PNGs. And a lot of it's going to be pretty technical, right? But we do see emails from Iranian entities to Russian entities looking to maybe source equipment. I suppose there are only a few people in the world who know how to build reactors. This is from the Czech, or from Czechia. Yeah. This is the kind of thing that I was seeing in here. We see some PDFs as well. Non-disclosure agreements. Really? Nuclear power production development in Korea Electric Power Corporation. What else we got in here? Interesting. Cannot read that. Might be some sort of operating certificate. Yeah. I'm unfortunately not a linguist, and therefore and not trained in that's a reactor. I know that one. I know that one. I cannot speak Russian. I cannot speak Farsi. This is bananas, though. This is a lot of data. Supply chain documentation. This is significant impact, I would say. At first blush. I'm also not a defense analyst. But I suspect that there are some folks in Langley and elsewhere in Virginia that could make hay of this. Oh, look, it's in English. Hey, Killer. So what we're looking at is the result of the Black Reward dump from... So Iranian hacking group Black Reward claimed yesterday that they had breached Iranian nuclear government systems and had exfiltrated data from them. They then threatened to release that data if their demands for the release of political prisoners related to the Mahsa Amini protests going on in Iran were not met. They have since done so. And so we're looking at the data that they have dumped into their Telegram group just to see what the shape of the thing. Looks like some internal reports about the stress tests for their nuclear facilities. Some business documentation. I'm really interested in how much, Russian content there is here. This one was interesting. This is a visa application for a specific individual. Oh, happy belated birthday to Alexei Nirovnov. Right? This is going to be some Intel analysts' week ahead, I would imagine. Right? Who are these people? What are they doing? Pretty wild stuff. And this is just the public sample, right? Other things that were dumped or that may be dumped later may be more incriminating. This was just kind of the teaser. Okay. So, as I said, if you want to go check that material out for yourself, you can go on Telegram to the Black_Reward public Telegram group and pick that up. I've been making quite a lot of hay out of Telegram group hacking information recently, and it is kind of interesting how much stuff is just on there for you to go find. Also a bunch of Nazis, so watch out, but that's the internet for you. Okay, but today is not about that. Today, we're taking it easy. We're having a nice, fun stream. We're going to play a little bit of Kerbal Space Program. My plan is to do basically like a speed run of the American aerospace story, starting from the late 1940s up through the 60s. We'll see how far we get. This will only make their government more mad. Their government was already max mad, Killer. I don't know. The point here, like the political prisoners were already political prisoners. We saw that there was a fire at one prison. I don't know if that's how I would think about it. The data point I would take from this is that we've never seen an internal Iranian group go after its own government before. At least as far as I know. And certainly not disclose the information publicly. That kind of fracturing is the sort of thing that you might expect to see before the toppling of a regime. Right? Similar stuff was going on in Egypt in, 2012? So that's kind of where my head is at with this, is that I'm taking it as evidence that there's something different going on this time in Iran, that there's more momentum behind the movement, and that's great news. All right. Maybe switch it up to something a little bit chiller. There we go. And now, it's Kerbin time. All right, so I'm going to play in sandbox mode because I want access to all the parts, and I have added just a couple of mods. And so, as I said, we want to start from like the beginning of the aerospace adventure, basically from the breach of the sound barrier up through the Mercury, Gemini program, and up to Apollo, if we can get there. So the first thing I'll ask is, what happened on October 14th, 1947? Does anybody know? This is, by the way, like a huge area of nerdery for me. October 14th, 1947 is like a personal holiday, or October 14th is a personal holiday for me for this exact reason. Let's start here. I love that the mod I got had this exact cockpit in it. We'll move this down a little bit closer to the ground. Doesn't need to be that big. And although this should be dropped from a bomber, we will not do that. We'll do a ground takeoff and attempt to break the sound barrier that way. Hopefully we'll have enough thrust to make that happen. And it's going to be a rocket engine. So let's see, I need a Mark 1 liquid fuel. That's liquid fuel. I need liquid fuel and oxidizer. So, well, that's just liquid fuel, but is that split between? Yeah. And fuselage. All right, we'll toss another one in there. And Lonely Edith, Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier. That is 100% correct. Learned earlier this year that the Soviets actually landed a rover on Venus and it worked for a bit. Yeah, there are some... I don't know about a rover, but that's cool. Yeah, Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier on October 14th, 1947. Thank you. Thank you very much, Lonely Edith. And... do we want one more? Nope, too far. Wants... There we go. This guy. That's the right size. And then we'll put an engine on the back of this thing. Yeah, there's some crazy pictures from it. That's too big. I guess we can use the Rapier engine. The Rapier engine is cool because it's mixed mode. You can use it as an air-breathing engine or as a rocket engine. In this case, we'll use it as a rocket engine. All right, now we need some wings. Now, if you've never seen the Bell X1, first of all, it's a bright orange. And it is currently on display at the Udvar-Hazy Annex to the National Air and Space Museum. If you fly into Washington, D.C. or the Washington, D.C. area via the Dulles International Airport, take some time. Go to the Udvar-Hazy hangars there. It's literally 5 minutes from the terminal at Dulles. And what you'll find there is not only this aircraft, which broke the sound barrier, but also you'll see the Space Shuttle Discovery. That's where that lives. There's a Concorde there. A bunch of modern military aircraft, including an F-14, F-35. I guess F-14s aren't modern anymore, but Cold War era, we'll say. And also some problematic history as well, right? There's that is where the Enola Gay is stored, the B-29 superfortress that dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. So if you want to see that aircraft or you're interested in aviation history, definitely don't miss the Udvar-Hazy Annex. The main Air and Space Museum in DC is like, I think it's kind of lame, to be honest with you. There's some cool stuff there, but because of the remodeling that's happening, all of the neat stuff. Oh yeah, Apollo 11 is now at Udvar-Hazy. Like all the really cool stuff is now out in Virginia. Okay, we need some wings. Now the crazy thing about the Bell X1, well, there were many crazy things about the Bell X1, but one of them, let me see if I can get a picture going. You didn't think this wasn't going to be a teaching moment, did you? Yeah, one of the crazy things about the Bell X1 was that it had straight wings. Oh, I guess it did. It was curved in the front, but not in the rear. It had straight wings because they had not yet figured out swept wings in 1947. There's a picture of Yeager with the glamorous Glennis. Glennis was his wife. And yeah, so the thing was dropped from the same kind of bomber that the Enola Gay is, actually. All right, so let's swap that out. Let's give it a straight tail. If we can find one. Standard canard. That's actually perfect. That's a little bit more rockety, but it'll do. And we're going to need some elevators. So we'll toss these on the back. And now we need some wings. We want to generate lift. Now, I don't know if I can make a straight wing super easily. I'll give it a shot. There's this fat B wing connector. No. Oh, this one will do. Now, I don't know if these generate lift. Let's see. Let's turn on our overlays for... Oh, yeah, look at that. So, this is our center of thrust, which is where you would expect it to be. This is our center of gravity, and this is the center of lift. For positive control, you do want your center of gravity and center of lift to be kind of close. That's pretty far forward. Can we move the elevators forward as well? Help that out? Yeah, there we go. So what this means is essentially when you attempt to control the aircraft, you will be controlling it about the center of gravity, right? Which means that it'll feel like you're controlling it meaningfully and it won't kind of flop. Those are super technical aeronautical terms. All right, let's give it a little bit of landing gear. Ooh, look at these. Steerable landing gear. I'll take it. I'll turn off symmetry and snap this guy on the front. It's looking good. By the way, if you've never played Kerbal Space Program, it's a ton of fun. If you are exactly this kind of person, ah, don't want to do that. Want that wing off. Or I want the landing gear off. Symmetrical. So the problem with landing gear is that that's going to be too big. Ah, it's going to be too big. Let's do some slant landing gear here. No, that's also going to be too big. So low, maybe? Oh, those are gigantic. Oh, yeah, there we go. I'm into it. I'm into it. I don't know how stable this is going to be. Look at that. That's really nice. Okay. Let's call it the TX1. Let's go for a test burn. Hey, Ruthless, thank you so much for the follow. I should warn everybody who's viewing right now, this is not normally what we do. Normally we're doing some sort of hacking or programming or something like that, but today we are taking it easy. All right, so that's different. I don't know why it's leaning to one side. Is the front landing gear asymmetric? No, it's just the... Put the brakes on. the runway must be tilted. So let's see how we're doing. We have liquid fuel, but we don't have oxidizer. Please don't kill the test pilot. I will do my very best. Yeah, so we just got a flame out, and the reason we got a flame out is because we only have liquid fuel. We do not have oxidizer. Right up here, you can kind of see there's liquid fuel, but not oxidizer, and that means that the engine cannot burn. Now, if I change it to air breathing, it still doesn't work because I have no air coming in, right? I didn't put an air intake on this thing. So for right now, the pilot is fine. Let's go back to the spaceplane hangar. We got to replace one of these fuel components with oxidizer. Yeah. Let's take this guy and turn it into oxidizer. Cargo bay, crew cabin, liquid fuel. I need... It's driving me crazy here. See, this is the supersonic intake, so that would work if we were doing air breathing, but I want... Do I seriously not have oxidizer? I only have... These are really, really, really gigantic components. Oh, no. Actually, that'll work out. Okay, so we're going to have to change this up a little bit, I think. So I don't want... Let's pop this off. Yeah, we're going to have to redo that, I think. Because we're going to need... I think that's missily. Okay, let's go get those wings and the fuel's all in one wing. No, the fuel isn't in the wing. The fuel is in the fuselage in this case. It's essentially a sideways rocket. Hey, Triz, yeah, we're hacking space. At the moment, we're about to hack the sound barrier. At least I hope so. How big is this? Ooh. That's too small, really, for our purposes. But I like... Oh, it's so funny. Look where it's attaching. That's not... That's no good. There we go. And then let's move those back in. Nice. Let's just check our overlays. Where's our... Not too shabby. Move those wings up just a bit. Yeah, there we go. And let's get that landing gear back. So this guy right here. Oh, that's gonna tail drag real bad. I can already see that. Yikes. That's interesting. Okay, now it's attached. Let me move it. I can't move it back further than that. That's interesting. Okay. Well, let's see how this goes. And of course, if anybody has recommendations, please jump in. Still nice and low to the ground. It is, the wings are clearing the ground. Brakes. And let's see. How we doing? That's not what the artificial horizon should be doing, but okay. All right. Let's just do a quick test burn here. Let's see. We've got liquid fuel, and we have oxidizer. Fantastic. So let's throttle up and turn on the engine. All right. I'm using the ailerons to adjust our roll here just a little bit. Oh! Oh, that didn't go well. I tried to use the rudder to turn, and we just don't have the ground clearance. Okay, so lesson learned. I think we might want drag chute for landing. That's a good idea. Very, very, very good idea. Yeah, we need a couple of drogue chutes here. I like it. And yeah, we'll toss those. Up here so that they'll pull past the tail as it lands. Super good call. And then we need more clearance from our landing gear, so we're going to upgrade a bit. Tail landing gear. What's this look like? That is enormous, so that's not necessary. Oh, you know what we might do? You know what we might do? Let's tail. How big is this? Enormous. Too big. What about... What if I put these on the wing? Yep, just like that. Perfect. Oh, that's too tall. This is why they dropped the thing. How many times did Jaeger have to eject in his career? I believe the answer is 2. The first time was in World War II when he was shot down over France and actually got taken in by a French Maquis family to get him all the way back to England. And the second time that I'm aware of was in the RF-104J. I think that was the designation. And is an experimental F-104 starfighter that had a rocket attached to the tail. And basically, he was trying to beat an altitude record. In so doing, he put the airplane... The F-104 has these stubby little wings, and he put the aircraft into a flat spin that was unrecoverable. He ejected, but the rocket motor from the ejection seat caught his suit on fire. It then caught his oxygen hose for his face mask because he was way too high for regular masks. Caught fire to his oxygen mask, and then it burned his face on the way down. He landed successfully. He survived, but yeah, I think that's the second time he had to bail. Yeah, I guess technically, if you want to get super technical, 1 ejection, because there were no ejection seats in World War II. He bailed out of the airplane, but he did not. He wasn't flung out of it by a rocket. He had to jump out. Yeah. Just a little bit of stability. Come on. That's tall. Slant landing gear. What is this low landing gear situation? All I want are some, like, easy... long... You know what I'm looking for? I'm looking like the U2 has these wing wheels that allow you to... That is very funny. Why are you attaching like that? Fine. All right. Now, if we slant them out, that's going to be a little wacky. Just looking for some stability here. Well, we solve nothing if we put it that close in. All right, let's see if we can do a little bit better here. Okay. All right. Brakes on. Stability assist on. Throttle up. And we're burning. I'm just using the feathering the ailerons a little bit to get this roll sorted. Where I died last time was trying to adjust it with the rudder, and we're off the runway. Very cool. Cool. I love this when the engine explodes and it leaves the pilot. 30 meters per second. That's pretty good. Do I still have brakes? Uh-oh. Okay, so we got to solve this landing gear problem. It's non-negotiable. And then we'll do a rocket next. We will bypass the X-15. Here we go. Here we go. This is what I wanted the whole time. So basically what we're going to do... Small landing gear. Is put those on the wings. Where were these before? This is the exact right size that I wanted. Yeah, there we go. So, obviously the nose gear is a little bit lower, but that's okay. First of all, we can move that up slightly. But it's okay that the wings are going to be a little bit lower. Also move these back into the fuselage, or into the wing structure. And then I believe there was a tail gear or a tail wheel somewhere. No? Well, I'm going to put a couple of these asymmetrics back here anyway. 'Cause wait, where's the center? That might hold. Those are gigantic and heavy. Just do some more of these. We have stanced our aircraft. I'm sure there's a Honda CR-V with wheels like that in your neighborhood right now. All right. Let's see what this does. That's what you want to hear from your aeronautic engineer, right? Okay, well, it's definitely off the ground better. Oh, yeah. It still likes going to the... Whoa. It still likes going to the side. Which is interesting. It feels like it's... asymmetric in one way or another. Here we go. Nice straight right down the line. Just gonna feather it a little. It loves to go to the right. Why is that happening? Whatever, I'm taking off. It is constantly pulling to the right. And generating... Oh! Okay, so it was generating some lift. Can I land it? Nope. Huh. I wonder why it's rolling to the right so much. There's nothing asymmetric on this aircraft. Unless these wings are just garbage. Which may be true. Let's try it with actual wings. Crosswind? It's possible. That's a lot of crosswind, though. I think the problem might have to do with the fact that those weren't wings, per se. It was a wing connector. Alright. I'm going to cheat a little bit here. Look at this big fat wing. Okay. That's an interesting concept. I think they played with stuff like that in the 50s. Boy, this thing's going to have a ton of lift. It does, and the center of lift is right on the center of gravity. The problem with a lot of the parts in Kerbal Space Program is that they don't necessarily have control surfaces. Like, you notice that when I move the elevators move, but the wings don't really, they're static, right? So even when I turn, right, when I roll, my elevators are serving as ailerons. By the way, sorry, for those of you who aren't plane dorks, elevators pitch the aircraft. Ailerons, which are on the wings here, they will roll the aircraft by changing in opposite directions, right? So differential lift between the two wings causes a roll. And then the tail has a rudder on it so that when you try to steer left or right, that happens. So pitch, roll, and yaw are what you need for full positive control of an aircraft. Okay, this is definitely working better. I wouldn't say well, but it's definitely working better. So I think what we need, because I saw elevons, and elevons are joint elevator ailerons. The problem is, I don't know if you can attach them to... The wing looked really thick. It is, because it's... These are modeled after shuttle wings, basically, is the problem, is that we're using airplane control surface. Yeah, see? You know what? Let's give that a shot. Yeah, it's really designed... Okay, let's do this. Wing connector. Because we know we had these big fat wings. And then... let's put the elevons on them. Or control surface. It's all control surface? This is what I was looking for, though. Yeah. Yes, 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 yes! Yes! There we go. Now it's an airplane. No. Go back. Okay. Try to align that closer. This looked like the balance was off. Yeah, maybe. Again, part of it is that the physics for the atmospheric flight in this, totally wacky. Oh yeah, now we've got control surface, and I'm gonna just basically go straight up as fast as I can. Get off the ground. Okay, so we did do that. Little aggressive on the takeoff. All right. Oh, you know what we lost? We lost these, when we did that, we lost the balance, landing gear. In a lot of ways, in this game, atmospheric flight is harder than space flight, because you're working against type, basically. Okay, so those are set, and the back wheels are, like, unhelpful in that regard. Ooh, idea. What if we put these not there? But ridiculously, we put them... Okay, we're going to move those up. And then rotate them down. Okay. I think... almost there. That looks a little bit better. Where did you learn how to drive? Wow, it's a great question. On a farm, actually. Ah. Climb, climb, climb. Yes! Flight. Okay, now we have to break the sound barrier and not die. So sound barrier is at sea level around 750 miles an hour. That's looking right. Approaching max Q. Huh. And engine shutdown. All right. Now, do I dare attempt to fly this thing back manually? Boy, it is not slowing down much. We're still climbing, too. Passing 30,000 feet. Do a little roll. All right. Can I basically just do a split S to get back to the... Get back to the landing strip? Look at that speed go. He's like, what are you doing? Look at my ground speed is plummeting because I'm now no longer going the same direction, right? And now it's picking back up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to glide the whole way back, but that's why I left some gas in the tank. Notice that the Rapier engine actually has thrust vectoring on it, which I could have turned off, but is helpful. Now, the next stage will fire the drogue chute, to get us there. This engine's just purring, right? I'm barely touching it. We're basically in stable flight. Hi, Silver Slider. Just warping time here. All right, let's cut the power. Let's begin our glide path here. Trying to line this up for a manual landing. I would love it if I could have a successful flight and a successful landing. That'd be a pretty good day for me. And the pilot. Or Jeb Kerman. All right. Gear down. Flaps would have been cool, but I guess I don't get those. We are screaming in. I don't want to hit the drogue chute just yet. Oh man, too high. Looks like a MiG-21. It looks like a MiG-21. What are you talking about? The MiG-21 has swept wings. It has an inline intake, and it has swept wings. Drag chute it is. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Okay, so I'm going to miss the runway, but I think I'm going to land successfully. Yes! Nice. And brakes. Any landing you can walk away from. I will say, yeah, the tail definitely... The MiG-21 has a super triangular vertical stab. Definitely true. Hey, Spartan. All right. With the X1 out of the way, we will now move to the Mercury program. Now, there was the X-15 in between, and I will say that the X-15 is one of those cool things that if you get to go see it at Udvar Hazy, worth doing. Because the X-15, the highest speed it reached it's still the fastest aircraft ever flown. Not the SR-71. The SR-71 is the fastest jet that was ever flown. But the X-15A2 was a rocket, right? It had a rocket motor, and it was dropped from a B-52. And it did eventually go so high that the pilots earned astronaut wings. But the X-15A2 flight, I think by Bob Knight, reached Mach 6.67. What's the icon next to GitHub? That is... Wow, I actually get to use this. That is Mastodon for the Fediverse. This, by the way, is the X-15A2. It had, so the difference between the X-15 and the X-15A2 is that it had these additional fuel tanks to extend its burn. And when it did its flight, it was covered in this protective paint. What's that for? Well, Spartan, so social media is a bit of a mess, and there are lots of different reasons why people don't want to be on Twitter, for example. And so federated social media is something that I'm pretty interested in. There's some ups and downs with it, but Mastodon is an open source piece of software that allows people to spin up their own instances of federated social media and create communities that people can join. How am I so knowledgeable about aviation? Everybody has their thing, Gebs, and aviation has always been mine. My dad was a pilot, a commercial, not commercial, but a private pilot. And when I was a kid, we had a plane, which got me interested in it. And I've just always been fascinated by space flight and aviation for like financial reasons and honestly also environmental reasons. It never made sense for me to go get my pilot's license. It's stupid expensive. And also, I didn't like the idea of, as a leisure activity, burning a bunch of avgas. That didn't seem like a super responsible thing to do. But I love the story of human ingenuity that has gone into getting us off the ground. The fact that airplanes work at all, to me, gives me hope, right? That there are some things in physics that can work in our favor. It's not always... The house doesn't always win. You know, it gives me hope that we can achieve Earth orbit. It gives me hope that we can achieve transfer to other planets. I hope someday we figure out the secret sauce necessary to travel faster than light, too. I am maybe naively optimistic about that, but I really hope that there's, much like the Bernoulli principle that allows us to fly, there's some way that we can, bend the rules a little bit so that we can expand our understanding of the universe that way. Yeah, wormholes maybe, or actual warp drive, right? Where you actually essentially compress space-time in front of you and expand it out the back. That seems like it might complicate some other things, but that's, I think, the best theory that we have. All right, let's go to the tracking station. Can we recover this? We can recover this. Cool. And now let's go build a rocket. Do I play War Thunder or DCS? Great question. No, I do not, and let me tell you why. If I bought DCS, that would become my entire life. That would be what I do. I would get every peripheral. I would build a whole cockpit in front of my computer. I would survive on an IV drip. That's it. That's all I would do. And so I know that about myself. I know that I can't let that happen. I have a wife. I have a life. I can't do that. So, no, I do not play DCS. I do, however, really enjoy watching Growling Sidewinder's DCS videos on YouTube. It's kind of like one of my things I do to wind down at the end of the day. All right, let's build a rocket. So we'll start with the Mercury program. The Mercury rockets were yeah, Grim Reapers is good. Longshot's good. I appreciate Growling Sidewinder's explanation of air combat maneuvering. Right, so the Mercury rockets were repurposed ICBMs, basically. And so they were small and they were dangerous. Okay. Without looking it up, who was the first human in space? Gebs has it. Yuri Gagarin. Absolutely. Now, who was the first American in space? Oreo Bite Redeem, play me a song. Oh, actually, I have the perfect song. I don't know if Husky's hanging out or lurking, but it's going to be a Bright Eyes song, so we should be happy. Okay. This has been a minute since I've actually played this song. Everything sounding okay? So I'm going to take your silence as that everything does in fact sound okay. Brother Totem Pole, I saw your legends lined up, and I never felt more natural apart. I just came apart. Please, 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 Sister Socrates, you always answer with a question, show some kindness to a petty thief. Forgive, you did forgive. Watch the migrants smoke in the old orange grove. The red rocket blaze over Cape Canaveral. You've been a father to me in 1960s speak. The comatose joy like we're on TV, while the mountainside was shining wild colors of my destiny. I watched your face age backwards, changing shape in my memory. You taught me victory was sweet, even deep in the cheap seats.
hey, hey, Mother Interstate, can you deliver me from evil? Make me honest, make me wedding cake. Atone, I will atone. Wait, 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 mighty outer space. All that flying saucer terror made me lazy drinking lemonade. A waste, it just went to waste. Like the Freon cold out the hotel door, the white rocket fade over Cape Canaveral. You've been a daughter to me, you buried shoebox grief, felt your poltergeist love like Savannah heat, while the waterfall was pouring crazy symbols of my destiny. I watched your face dive backwards, little baby, in my memory. You told me victory was sweet, even deep in the cheap seats. And you don't judge me, that's not your style. But I won't see you for a little while. There are no worries, Lord, who's got time? All these changes gonna fill your mind. Like the citrus glow off the old orange grove, the red rocket blaze over Cape Canaveral. It's been a nightmare to me, some 1980s greed. Give me parachute dreams like old war movies, while the universe was drawing perfect circles from infinity. I watch the stars get smaller, tiny diamonds in my memory. I know that victory is sweet, even deep in the cheap seats.
Good day for a play me a song. Thanks, Oreo. Thank you very much, Gibbs. Thank you very much, Data Basics. Oh, right. Back at it. So we're building a Mercury-style rocket. Not much going on here. So, easy days. We're going to put a little safety chute so the astronaut does not perish. And these are cool because they're single stage. We need ourselves a heat shield. Too small. Just right. And that's kind of it. If you look at the Mercury spacecraft, they were just about like this, down to the textures. Did anyone find out who the first American in space was? Hint, it's not John Glenn. John Glenn was the first American to orbit in space, but not the first American in space. All right, we need a coupler here. Alan B. Shepard. That is correct. All right, so this decoupler is going to explode the rocket off of the capsule. And so now we get to just make an engine here. So let's see. Yeah, pretty much just that. Take a couple of those. I mean, I think that's basically what we need. Maybe like one more. Yeah, there we go. They were not large. All right, now we need an engine. This is going to be a proper rocket engine. Nope, too big. uh, Reliant do? The Reliant will do. This thing has a thrust of 205 kilonewtons in atmosphere, and in vacuum 240. This looks good. Now, the other thing that we're going to do, notice, if you've ever played Kerbal Space Program, one of the trickiest parts is staging. So stage 1 is going to be this rocket ignites. Stage 2 is we decouple it, right? And then stage 3 is the parachute opens. We'll call this the Turmercury. Oh, Turmeric. Turmeric 1. Okay, so now... Yeah, the next thing I want to do for sure is get this on the ground and support it. This is something I do for all of my sandbox builds once I have this ability, because it's really nice. You can just have a support strut here that will release when you launch. And notice that it got added to the first stage down here. Alan Shepard, by the way, is famous for something else in spaceflight history, other than being the first American in space, and for giving us the Shepherd's Prayer, which he said over the radio while he was waiting to take off, which was, "Please, Lord, don't let me F up." He did something else later in his career, which you've probably seen footage of, even if you didn't know it was Alan Shepard at the time. All right. So how much thrust total do we have here? We'll know in a moment. That's our cost, but I want my delta V stats. Yeah, give me my... This is why I use MechJeb. It has all sorts of cool... This is a mod. Okay, my delta V is 3361 meters per second. I don't think that's enough to get to orbit, but... It is that's perfect, because it should be a suborbital flight. So let's launch this thing and see what happens. He put the American flag on the moon. That's a really good guess. The first people on the moon were Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin. And so, no, he did not put the American flag on the moon. What he did do, however, was play golf on the moon. He brought his clubs and a golf ball and drove a golf ball, like, into a suborbital trajectory on the moon. All right, let's give this a shot. So basically, what we're trying to do, if we go to the map here, is we're launching east. And our goal is to create a parabolic trajectory and land in the ocean without dying. We will not make it to orbit. And this is where Kerbal Space Program actually ends up being really educational. Okay, so first of all, notice that this spaceport of ours is pretty much at the equator of this planet. This isn't real. I know this looks like Africa, but it's not. Boy, they really did. That's like the Iberian Peninsula, huh? But no, this is just it's a fake planet called Kerbal. But why do we launch from the equator? Even from Florida, or I mean Vandenberg, they're not. Why is it better to launch as close to the equator as possible? Lowest gravity value? Actually, it's the highest gravity value. It's more fuel efficient, but it's not because of gravity. It's because of centripetal force. The planet is spinning, right? And as you know, not parallel to other planets, the ecliptic plane, that's a good guess, Oreobite. That's true, sort of, but not always. No, so think about this. The planet is spinning, right? And think about a record player or like a carousel. The closer you stand to the center of that thing, right, the slower you spin, right? The more to the outside of that circle you are, the faster you spin. So if you take the planet and you slice it, right, into many disks, right, they're all spinning, but those disks, like any point on that sphere, that the diameter of that slice is spinning at a slower rate as the diameter gets smaller. So the top, like this part of the planet up here, the North Pole, is rotating slower than the equator. And so if you think about the orbital speed of the planet is something like 25,000 miles an hour or something like that. Because like 24-hour day, right? And it's spinning, that's why. If you launch at the equator, you are getting around a 900 mile per hour velocity advantage, as opposed to launching up toward one of the poles. And that's also why you launch east. They're all rotating with the same angular velocity, but the linear velocity is higher. Yes, thank you. That's a much more technical description. And that's also why you're going east, because you're going with the spin of the planet, right? If you were launching the opposite way, you wouldn't be getting that advantage. All right. Let's launch this thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to get as high as possible. So we're not going to turn the rocket that much as we launch. We will do a little bit, though. Maybe around 15 degrees. Once we clear, let's say, 2,000 meters. We're still accelerating. That's good. Our liquid fuel is good. Okay. And then I'm just going to slightly tip it over. Using my gimbal here to track it. All right. And now you can see our parabolic trajectory is going. Now, this term apoapsis is the highest point in an orbit. When we're talking about Earth, that term is an apogee. But for anything else, it is an apoapsis. And periapsis is the lowest point in an orbit, which we don't have because we don't have an orbit. Dang. Huh. We're actually killing it on this flight. If I can get up to like 70,000 feet, we might actually be able to, or 70,000 meters, we might be able to achieve orbit. All right, I'm killing the rocket because I still have some delta V left. And what I want to do a little bit more. I just want to keep it up at like 80,000 feet. So I've throttled down, but the rocket's still burning. What I want to try to do, maybe kick this up to like 100. I don't know if I'm going to get a circular orbit or even an elliptical orbit, but I'm going to try to add a prograde maneuver here. No way. Nah, not quite enough delta V to make that happen. Oh, I will now, though. Yeah. Is that all the way around? No. if I add a prograde maneuver here, oh my. Yeah, I don't have enough delta V to make that happen. That's okay, though, because the Mercury flights did not. Go away, burn maneuver. There we go. Okay. Nevertheless, I am, when we get... I still want to see what happens. So a prograde maneuver here gets me what? 1,600 meters per second. Pretty good. That's an orbit. Okay. We're going to give that a shot. So we're going to try to go for an orbit here. And so our burn time is 36 seconds. And what you want to do with these is try to split your burn before and after the node. So I actually, at 13 seconds, I'm aligning for the maneuver. All right, I'm going to be a little late. And burn. As you can see, I'm burning what's called prograde, which is in the direction of my trajectory, and my path is changing. If I can get it, basically an orbit is falling away from the planet at the same rate as the planet is falling away from you. That's what an orbit is. So if I can create a trajectory such that the curvature of my fall matches the curvature of the planet at, or similar to that at the altitude, then I will be in an orbit. And I did not make it. But that's okay. That's a pretty good... So we need a little bit more delta V for a normal burn, but that's okay, because this is our first space flight. At which point, we can now jettison this thing. And because we're not SpaceX, that thing is just going to burn up in the atmosphere. And... enjoy space, little Kerbal. Let's rotate this around so you can see your home planet. Pretty good, right? All right. Now, let's adjust the alignment of this thing to be retrograde, because the heat shield has to be what hits the atmosphere first, or we will have a roasted Kerbal. All right, let's accelerate time a bit. See, our altitude is diminishing. Where are we landing? We're landing, like, in the mountains or something. Yikes. It's like a Kazakhstan landing. Okay. We're still retrograde. That's good. Ideally, this thing is going to tilt downwards soon. Notice that our velocity, our orbital velocity, there we go, was increasing, and now it's going to slow down real quick. And our heat shield is doing its job. Protecting our crew member. This was a pretty shallow entry trajectory. I'm cooking the Kerbal more than I need to. But it is coming in. Hey, GoPro. Putting on a nice light show for the folks over here. All right. Yeah, we're booking it. All right, we have now slowed down enough that the atmosphere is no longer rubbing us. The atmospheric friction is no longer cooking us. And by the way, so that's something that drives me crazy in science fiction stuff or movies where it's like you go up really high and then you fall straight down, and they'll show like a re-entry heat thing. That's not gonna happen. And if you think about like that Red Bull parachute jump that happened a few years ago, that's why that worked, right? Because it's not the falling down that makes the re-entry heat happen. It's the falling really fast sideways, basically, right? Because you're coming through so much atmosphere so quickly, and we're talking like 25,000 miles an hour. I should jettison this heat shield and then hit my parachute. Because I can't tell. I think I'm over the ocean. I am. But I can't tell. Yes, I am over the ocean. So let's get this thing landed. The parachute won't do much above a certain altitude, as you can see. There we go. Heat shield falls away. And at a gentle 5.2 meters per second, we will hit the water. The dude in the Red Bull jump was starting from a standstill. Exactly right. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you just go up really high and then come back down, straight up and down, you won't have that re-entry burn thing happen. Splashdown, send the recovery vessel. Indeed. Successful first flight. All right. That would have been good for science if I were in science mode. I am not. Now, Phillips Baumgartner. Yeah, that was the cat who did it. But you see that all the time in like Marvel movies where they'll fall straight down. Okay, now let's add some delta V to this thing. And by the way, delta V is the ability for a craft to change its velocity. Delta change V velocity. And so that's kind of like the way to think about how much power a spacecraft has, is its delta V. Has there been even one good Hollywood movie recently? I just watched one that was good, and I can't, like, surprisingly good, and I can't remember what it was now. They're few and far between, for sure. I don't know if anybody saw the Matt Damon interview when he was like I don't know the name of the show, but like when they're making him eat hot sauces, where he basically explained why movies suck now, and it's because of the end of DVD sales. Can't wait for Hot Ones with Sean Evans. Thank you. Wow, boy, Gibbs knows everything. Can't wait for space travel to be so advanced that the saying "it's not rocket science" won't fit. It'll be easier at that point in time. I agree. I mean, there's still a lot of room for error, but you know, space is definitely not a friendly environment. But yeah, I firmly believe that Kerbal Space Program has taught more people orbital mechanics than Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University ever has. So to make this happen, what I think we want to do is a two-stager. The second stage doesn't have to be about much, but it does have to be about something. So let's go back to our fuel tanks, and let's get, that's RCS. I don't need RCS. Yeah. That's all I need. And then engines. Do I have the Poodle, I think? Is that what I want? No, that thing's too big. What do I want here? Names of actors, at least. I cannot. All I'm remembering is the feeling of, like, that was a surprisingly good movie. I mean, I can see some problems with using this engine. But yeah, so Damon explained that essentially... Oh, the Terrier, this is going to be good, I think. It's 14 newtons, but I don't need it to be much because it's in vacuum. Yeah, this is going to be good. And then we will add a decoupler to that. And then we'll add a little bit more fuel to our bottom stage as well. So basically what Damon was saying was, like, the reason that movies now are awful is because they have to make all of their money at the box office. And so the only thing that puts asses in seats, basically, is blockbuster stuff that everybody wants to go see because it's a pop culture phenomenon, right? And that has to be where the movie makes its money, because we're no longer in the age of VHS or DVD sales, because it used to be the case, like back in the 90s, that movies would have essentially a second box office in those post release sales, VHS, DVD, and even rental markets, right, through Blockbuster or whatever. But that doesn't happen anymore because of the streaming services. And so all the money that a movie makes has to be made on its release. The only kinds of movies that bring in enough money to cover the costs of production are basically Marvel movies, right? And so you don't get... I mean, I obviously grew up in the 90s, so I'm partial to a lot of films from that era, but you don't get those smaller, very intimate films. You get them from, like, small studios, but they tend to have limited releases, or they're art house things, and you got to go find, like, a small theater that shows them. They're not going to be available at major movie theaters. The only difference, or the only exception to that rule, is when you get into, like, Oscar season, where you'll have studios that will basically take all the money that they made on their blockbusters and pour it into the movies that they want to win awards. They know that those movies are going to be losses at the box office. They know that. But they also know that they're going to be reputation builders for the actors that have contracts with that studio. So that's kind of like the trade-off that they're making. All right, let's see if this thing can get into orbit. We'll call it the Turmeric 2. Okay, next space trivia question. After the Mercury program, eventually we got to the moon with the Apollo program. But before that, there was the Gemini missions. What was the purpose of the Gemini missions? What? That didn't work. Most say Gemini. No, the astronauts say Gemini because they're from Texas or whatever. Gemini. Yes. The Gemini program. Alright, what's up with my staging here? Oh, because the engine is not in the first stage. Well, that will complicate matters for sure. Oh, it does give me a little delta V calculation here. That's nifty. So, right. So this engine activates, then we decouple and we activate that engine, then we decouple and parachute. All right, staging looks good. This is a form of programming, right? I'm creating instructions in sequence. All right. Let's see if I can get this thing to orbit manually. Look how happy he is. No takers on the purpose of the Gemini program. Super important set of missions, and it was actually Neil Armstrong's first flights in space. Super important missions because the Gemini flights demonstrated the feasibility of actually two things. The feasibility of rendezvous in space, docking two spacecraft together, which was necessary for how Apollo worked. Oh, we gotta kick this over. No, 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 no. Wrong way. Alright, I might have just ruined my chances. I've still got plenty of fuel, though. It was also when a bunch of spacewalks happened, our first spacewalks. Oh, yeah, I think we're going to get there with room to spare. So basically, the higher your initial apoapsis, the less delta V it's going to take to establish an orbit. Oh, we're good. Yeah, we're good. With time to spare. Now, let's add a prograde maneuver here. See what it takes to get in orbit. So that's 1713 delta V. And I have 621 in the stage here and 1428 here. So it's doable. So I'm going to hang on to whatever I have left in this stage. Actually, let me burn the rest of this. Now, and see what that does. See how it's reducing the delta V necessary? All right. We're going to eject that stage now. The Earth is traveling through space at 2.1 million kilometers per hour relative to the cosmic background radiation. I don't know why that's a point of reference for velocity, but okay. I think, do you mean relative to maybe like the galaxy? Or the background radiation? Like, what point of reference is that? Which means by the time you've read this, you've traveled roughly 8,700 kilometers through space. Yeah. Generally speaking, the point of reference for those sorts of things is the galactic center, not the cosmic background radiation, because that's not a place. Or the solar system, which is another reasonable point of reference, right? Okay, now let's get rid of this burn, and let's see what this burn is going to do. So we want to do a maneuver here to get us into an orbit. Come on. Yeah. I may not have the juice to make this happen. I may have underpowered my initial stage here. But I actually want to revert to the launch to see if this thing actually does have the juice to do it, but I'm just bad at flying. So I want to see if we can get to orbit with an actual orbit program, courtesy of MechJeb. We do ascent guidance, orbit altitude 100 kilometers. Yeah, let's do it. Auto stage, on warp, go. Let's see if this does it. People are like, well, MechJeb is cheating. I guess. My interest is in designing the spacecraft, not learning how well I can manually get a rocket to orbit. So MechJeb will auto stages. Notice that it is adjusting the trajectory eastward. Yeah, at around 2,000 meters. Hey, Shacknatomy, thank you so much for the follow. And you can kind of see that we're going like 30 degrees off gimbal is kind of where the sweet spot is. Climb looks good. And look how much wider this parabola was than the one I was making. So we're trading in a little bit of altitude, which we know we can gain plenty of, for a lot more surface speed. Yep. So presumably it's going to perform a burn. It's going to use some of stage 1 in the next burn. There we go. So 1419. Actually, it could do it all with stage 2, but by using the rest of stage 1, we'll have enough juice to, I hope, deorbit. Oh yeah, because we have got 950 meters per second of delta V left in stage 1. So that takes us a good chunk of the way down this burn. So the burn time is 47 seconds, so yeah. See how I would try to split the time between the node, the beginning, or before and after the node. So this is how much we need to change our velocity. And we're locked in on our target burn. Prograde. Stage 1 went away. We're way lighter now. So we did have the juice to do it. We just needed to adjust our trajectory eastward more to favor more ground speed. And that's it. Rather circular orbit. Our periapsis is at 99866, and the apoapsis is at 102. Not bad at all. We are in orbit. With plenty of delta V to play with, too. We're crossing the... we've crossed the Terminator into night, actually. So let's speed time up and get back into day. Oh, look at that sunrise. You'd love to see it. And let's take our... Let me spin this guy up here. There we go. And let's take Jeb for a walk. Just so he can see space from outside this capsule. Concerning. But we'll get him back to the spacecraft. He's having a great time, though. It's so funny how tough they actually make it to stay on the spacecraft. And why they don't... There we go. Give you a tether. All right, let's stabilize. And let's face prograde. Or, sorry, not prograde, retrograde. The opposite direction of our trajectory. And let's figure out how to get back home. So the easiest way to decrease your altitude is to burn opposite your periapsis. So if I burn at my apoapsis, I will decrease my periapsis most. But that doesn't necessarily mean it'll be the easiest way to get to the Space Center. So basically, add a retrograde maneuver here. That's a little too far away. That's a little too far away. All right, let's remove that burn. Oops. There is a landing assist, but I don't want to use it. I want to see if I can manually drop this thing in the right spot. The problem is that the approach is too shallow, so let's actually try it quarter way around. Get rid of this burn. We've got the Delta V to do it. That'll drop us right on. Right in front of the Space Center. A little bit more retrograde, if you please. That's not bad. Just a little bit more. Like an inch more prograde. Okay. Now we actually have to execute that burn. 196 meters per second of delta V, 8 seconds, and comes up in 7 minutes. So the first thing we'll do is we'll align ourselves with the maneuver, and then we are going to warp to time warp to it. Oop, 6, 4. There we go. And we're burning. Oop. Forgot it was a... Well, we missed our target. We will land in the ocean on the other side. Let's go prograde and see if we can fix our trajectory a little bit. There we go. All right, kill that burn. Let's detach our second stage. Align retrograde. And await re-entry. How was everybody's week? In case you missed the notification, this is going to be the last stream for 2 weeks. We're going on hiatus just for a little bit. Bit of a fall break. And I will look forward to seeing you all when I get back. But it is healthy to take breaks. Important to have a balance in life. You don't want to be pushing hard all the time. Okay. After this successful flight, we'll move on and do I think we'll jump right to attempting a lunar mission. I think we can pull that off. All right. We way missed our target. The problem with the orbital calculator is that it doesn't take into account what's going to happen when once you're decelerating. That's all right. The recovery craft will still be able to find us. All right, let's deploy those chutes. Jettison the heat shield. Nice. So the lunar mission is a little bit tricky because we need to pack in a bunch of other stuff. right? For one thing, we need to provide enough electrical power. We need to create a lander. All right, let's make a new spacecraft here. What do we have in terms of options for our modules? I think we're going to have to go with our... Are we going to the moon? We are going to the moon before this decade is out. This is our command module. And this one's a little bit tricky, because what we want to do is we want to recreate the Apollo situation. And so with the Apollo spacecraft, you had the command module, the service module, which was essentially fuel tanks and electrical systems that were slapped on the back of it. And then you had the lunar excursion module, the LEM. And in the rocket, in the launch vehicle, they were stacked on top of each other. So you had the lander underneath of the command and service module in a fairing. And then once the vehicle got to orbit, the command module detached, rotated around, came back in, docked with the LEM, and extracted it, turned around and went to the moon. That is stupid hard in our case, so we are going to do it, but it takes some doing. And it also means that we can't use the same parachute that we were using before. We can't use a nose cone parachute, because our nose cone is going to be one of these guys. A shielded docking port. These are cool, right? So when it opens, now you can dock with things and actually have a connection between one spacecraft and another. But otherwise, it's aerodynamic. So if we want this to top our spacecraft, that's kind of part one. Now, what I think I might want to do is make two spacecraft. I know this isn't the way that Apollo did it, but it's so much easier than packing the lander. So we'll have two spacecraft, the Moongoer command module and the lunar module. We'll have two different launch vehicles, and then we'll get them in orbit and have them rendezvous once they're both in a stable orbit. That is the plan. So Moongoer, now we need to have the fuel for this thing. So the next piece of this is going to be what goes basically too big. That'll be for our base. That's the Saturn V, right? What goes to the moon, right? Even that might be a little much. That's closer to really what you need. There's your service module right there. Now, in addition to that, we forgot that we need, what, a heat shield? Same deal as before. And we will need a few other niceties here, now that we're actually flying in space. We will need RCS, reactive control services, and do we need the stabilizer? No, I think we'll be okay without that. We'll need RCS though. So here, we'll attach our... No, we need to be able to knock that off, so we need another coupler. There we go. Is that the wrong size? Is that why I'm getting that? No, it's the right size. It just looks weird. Okay. Very good. Okay, so that will allow us to detach the quote-unquote service module. And this has the fuel that we need. And let's put an engine on it. Yeah, that's a beast, but it's going to be what we need to get to the moon. And let's take this whole thing and move it up. trying to remember how to make sub-assemblies. Doesn't matter. All right, let's couple this with not that. Okay, and now comes... The Saturn V was a 3-stager, so we'll see how this goes. First of all, we're going to need an adapter. From here to here. Nope. Yes. And now we get to use one of these monsters. And we'll put $1,500 newtons. Wow. That's a massive engine, and it's small. Just kidding. Maybe I do want, the mainsail has... Yeah, look at the difference. So the skipper has 650 newtons for 3 tons, and for 6 tons, you get 1,500. I'll take that trade-off. What's the 50 and then 1,500? No, I guess this thing is probably a fuel guzzler, though. It doesn't give me the fuel consumption rate, which is unfortunate. Oh wait, here we go. There it goes. So the skipper drains at 18.642 seconds, and oxidizer 22.7, and then the mainsail. Oh yeah, that would be why. It has almost double the... Yeah, so it's pretty much double the power, and we don't need it. But we do need something for our second stage here. Oop. Also gonna need this coupler back. No. These are all tiny. I need large rockets. Oh, you know what I need? The mammoth will do. But actually, that's a good base. I need an adapter. Which I think is in structural. Yep. There's my quad stack. Wow, that's so small. I guess I don't get to do that. I guess once I'm this big, I use single engines. What are all of my options here? So I have the Rhino at 2,000 newtons. That's more like it. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. And then we'll need another one of these massive couplers. Oh yeah. And now we're moving on to the main stack here, our first stage. Are we overpowering this thing? A little bit, probably. but it's fine. No, where's my... Yeah, I'll take 2 of those. And... Oops. $4,000 newtons. Oh, yeah! That's wild. So the first stage just gets us off the ground at 1658 meters per second. We have a bananas second stage, and then we've got plenty of delta V for the full... This is the whole journey, basically, to the moon. Okay. How tall is this thing? It's sizable. And now a few other niceties that we're going to need. Actually, in addition to the... So we're going to need a little bit of monopropellant. And I like using... this. And the reason we need monopropellant is because we need RCS, reactive control system. This is how we're going to steer in space. Okay, and we're going to put these on the spacecraft. Kind of exactly where it has the visual candy for them, even though this thing doesn't actually have RCS. So we're adding RCS to it. I think that's right. Does the pod have RCS? Oh, it has integrated RCS. Well, dope. Never mind. But we will, because we want to be able to control the front and the back at the same time, we also want to put some RCS thrusters on the service module so that we can steer the front and the back at the same time. Nice. Okay. So we've got RCS fuel. We've got plenty of that. It looks good. Oh, power. We need power. So easiest way to do that is with solar panels. I like doing it this way. Not everybody does. But I'm a big fan. And we'll put 2 of these on here. Ugh, they're so boxy. But watch this. That'll give us more than enough juice for the trip. And I think we're good. Yeah, I think we're good. So that's the... We'll add the support struts, because look at this thing. Right? Okay. Let's save that and get it out to the launch bay. So basically what we want to do is we want to get this thing in orbit, and then we'll build the lander and send it up, and then we will rendezvous one with the other. The stream, I think we'll call it a day once we've had a landing on the moon. All right. Again, we're going to use our ascent guidance. Now, for reasons which will become clear, I'm going to orbit at 200 kilometers rather than 100. The problem with rendezvous is that you have to get your orbit periods in phase, right? Because if you launch at one time, if you don't really time your launches at the same time, you'll be orbiting at the same speeds at different points in the circle. And how do you change that up? The way that you change that up is by changing your orbital altitude so that basically you let one catch up to the other and then you change it back so that you meet. That's a huge pain. And I find that if you start your initial orbit higher, you have more room to play with in orbit, right? Before you hit the atmosphere to deal with one way or the other. So, and we've got the Delta V to do it. So let's make this happen. I just realized we forgot something very important. What did I forget? Crucial to survivability. I forgot. Shoots. And if we want to be, a little bit more scientifically accurate, we also need a communications antenna. We'll slap that on the service module. Okay, now the thing has a parachute, the crew won't die. From that. Lots of other ways, of course. That's the thing that drives me crazy about, like, the we're going to Mars conversation. There is never any debate, or there's never any conversation about how you're gonna solve problems like getting your crew irradiated on the way. Because once you're outside of the magnetosphere, you are introduced to all sorts of high energy ionizing radiation. And I don't think the stainless steel starship is really built to handle that particular problem. Look at you go. Got the Apollo 13 theme is going in my head. I'm seeing some stability issues. It's a little wobbly, but it'll be okay. Yes, Black Aries. This is a game. This is called Kerbal Space Program. It is one of my favorites because it's a spaceflight simulator where you design a spacecraft and you get it to fly. Ooh. Yeah, that's a little wobbly. But stage 1 is about to end, so I think we'll be okay. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And it teaches you a lot about spaceflight. Oof. That's an uncomfortable ride. Hey, Ginge. That don't look right. Goodbye. Stage 1. All right. That has calmed down the wobble significantly. And remember, we still have another stage. So this stage's whole job is to get us to orbit. Right? Anything else after that is icing on the cake. Because we still have another engine that's going to take us to the moon. So this thing's whole job is to get us up to 200,000 meters. And it's definitely favoring a high ground speed approach here, which is interesting. Getting it done, though. The reason I wouldn't necessarily do this is because this low in the atmosphere, you're dragging. You're fighting the atmosphere more than you need to. Even if you have the Delta V to do it, you're putting undue strain on the spacecraft. There we go. So basically, it kicked us up to 200,000 at the apoapsis, and then what's going to happen is that it's going to circularize the orbit, so that the periapsis is not 14,000 meters, which is just going to put us back on the ground. So once we get up here, it will adjust that, and we've got plenty of burn left to do it. Engage RCS. Now you can do the thing. Gracefully, unnecessarily slowly rotating around to its burn target. And so once this is done, once the orbit is circularized and everything is stable, what we'll do is we'll go back to the vehicle assembly building. We will basically take the same stack, but put another payload on top of it. Now, the lander's a little bit tricky. And the reason it's a little tricky is because the lander is not aerodynamic in any way, shape, or form. So we're going to have to put a fairing around it to protect it on ascent. Oh, it deployed the solar panels for us. That's handy. Thank you. Our power flow should be good. Yeah. Plenty of electricity. Monopropellant looks good. We've barely touched it. And our oxidizer and liquid fuel also totally fine for this stage. All right, looks like that burn was completed, and we have a circular orbit. Nice. All right, we will go back to the vehicle assembly building and go build ourselves a lunar lander. All right, so again, basically, this stack goes because that's not what's getting launched anymore. We now have to create a new command pod. So this is the Mark II lander can. This hosts 2 people, so this will be the correct situation for what am I trying to say? This will be the correct situation for our Apollo analog here. So we need a docking port here. And we have a Clampetron Senior. The problem is that we don't have one of those on the command module. So we need a bit of an adapter. Nope. Boy, it doesn't want to play ball. Oh, I see. Never mind. That's... I can't... That's the top of... no, it's not. I should be able to put a thing on it. Let me go back to coupling. Okay, let me reroute. Okay. Did I break this because I changed the command module? Let me try this another way. So let's go get the regular lander can that I usually use. Okay, now can I... put a docking port atop this thing? This is the parent part. Can't join anything to it, it seems like. Oh, wait, because there was a lander can already in here. That was the problem. Okay. So again, let's knock this off. And yeah, take all of this off. Now, let's get another... That was annoying. I see what happened. Okay, so the way that you add a root part is just a little bit funky. Now, I should be able to add stuff now. Yes. Fantastic. Problem is, I need not a grabbing unit. I need an adapter. Not like that. Sort of like that. Yeah. And now we can put a regular docking port on top of this thing. It's like it has a hat. Now, I could just say forget it and put one of those right on here, I think. That also will work fine, especially because it's doesn't have to be aerodynamic. Hello, malware guy. Okay, now we do need some fuel for this thing. This thing needs fuel. Not like a lot, but some, because it is going to land on the moon. And we need it to land and be able to take back off again. So we need that, and we need an engine. It doesn't need much of an engine, but it does need something. Right? So we need it to be a small profile. Terrier, 60 kilonewtons. Honestly, this is more fuel than we need. But no. I need a very, very low profile engine. I guess the Terrier's about as good as it gets. Yeah. Okay, so now we need landing gear. Like so. Rad. Okay. And we will start retracted, of course. We also are going to need a little bit of power. It needs independent power, for which we'll just use a battery pack. Okay. Cool. And then we need a bit of RCS. We also need monopropellant, which we don't have. So the way that I like to solve that... Actually, there's another way we could solve that problem, which is by using the Werner engines. These use rocket fuel for RCS. So actually, they might be a slick inline solution for what we need here. Yeah. One fuel source. Not terrible. Okay. Now, ooh, just kidding. Let's maybe not put it right underneath where the... Can I put them up here? Is there some reason I can't put them up here? All right, it is what it is. I do... What do I want? I want a ladder. Great. Now, our little Kerbals will be able to get in and out of the spacecraft. Lastly, navigation lights. I need lighting to use some of that power. And it's a floodlight? Yes. Yes! It's so dark on the moon, it's handy to have this. Now, this thing is good. Let's get the crew out. So we don't need to put anyone else in the craft. This thing is going to be pretty much automated as it goes up. And to do that, we will also make sure that it has a MechJeb autopilot on it. Just slapping stuff on wherever it fits. Okay, now comes the really fun part. We're going to do a coupler. Too big. Just right. But the thing about the coupler is that we're not ready for it yet. We are, however, going to use where is the fairing? There. Actually, we do the coupler and then we do the fairing. Yes. So the way the fairing works is, look at this. We can cover everything up. So this is how we're going to make things. Now we have protected the lunar lander on its ascent. All right, so let's see. We have stage 1, stage 2. The fairing goes, and then the decoupler will disconnect, and then we'll just have the lander ready to go. I think this is it. So we're going to save this as Moongoer Lander. And let's get this thing out to the launch pad. Get this thing up in space. All right, same deal. We're going to fire this up. For those of you just joining us, just as a heads up, this is going to be the last stream for 2 weeks. I will be back on... What day will that be? How do calendars work? The 9th of November. Just doing a little bit of a fall break. Now, presumably, this will be way easier because the stack is lighter. Still a bit of wobble in our first stage here. The physics engine for Kerbal Space Program really struggles with this. You know, you've got all this stuff stacked, but then how do you allow for regular, hinge mechanics? But at the same time, and I imagine that this is a struggle that actual aerospace engineers have to deal with. Ah! Dang it. I pressed spacebar. I staged too early. Happens to the best of us. So you can see that the command module is still there. Oops, sorry. Every time I check another window, this stops displaying. I feel like this game solves or it scratches an itch that I don't have space or resources to scratch otherwise, which is model making. You know, like I don't really have the square footage or the, frankly, time or skill to build like ship models or airplane models. That's a very like retired dad sort of hobby, but you know, the idea of especially like 3D printing pieces and putting them together sounds cool, but I definitely just do not have the any kind of bandwidth to make that happen. So instead, you can build a spaceship in here and see if it flies. It's just, you know, it's happy. It's wagging its tail. As long as it doesn't break. We're almost done with stage 1 anyway. 5,000 Delta V in this stage 2. What a monster. Now, the rendezvous is going to be a little bit tricky. We'll see how that goes. And again, this engine's whole job is to establish this orbit. Hey, Volley. Play the game right here. It's not like the most high energy game. Ugh. Ugh, gross. Okay, I guess it decided that it was time for the fairing to go. So there's our lander, exposed to the harsh vacuum of space. And we've got a burn scheduled. Just turn on RCS so it can actually do its thing. No, the play of the game will be the rendezvous. The hardest part of this whole process is docking the two craft. All right, we're approaching our circularization burn. Awesome. Okay, so now we are in the same altitude orbit as the command module, but notice that we're not in any useful location. So to fix that problem, first of all, we're done with this engine. So let's knock it off. Interesting. Oh no, it worked. Right, so the fairing adapter and the clampetron here worked. So now this engine should be active, but I don't want it to be, really. I do, however, want the lights on. And we'll blink. Okay. We won't do that right now. And the reason we want that to be true is because we want to make it easy to see this thing when we go get it. Now, let's go over to our command module. Which still has some juice in the second stage. And there's no reason not to use it. So we're gonna, for a rendezvous maneuver, so we have to set a target of the lunar module. Whoops. I like how it has a little lander icon. Set as target. Awesome. And actually, you can see that the closest approach is like, we're 1,500 kilometers away from each other right now. So I want the final distance to be 10 meters away. So again, this is one of those things where you can manually plan the orbits if you want. But again, that can get pretty tiresome pretty fast. So I have no problem using computational tools the same way that actual astronauts do. There are lots of different ways to play Kerbal Space Program, depending on what your objectives are. What a monster engine. No reason. Yeah, see how it's the autopilot likes to lower the orbital altitude first and then come back up to rephase, which is why I start the orbits at 200,000 meters so that it has the wherewithal to do so. I should have put RCS thrusters on this guy. It's slowly coming around. It says it has integrated RCS thrusters. Is there some reason why it's not using them? Oh no, it is. They're just, how much monopropellant have I used? Should be fine. All right. Now we time warp. Three-second burn. There it is. So we have one more burn to complete, at which point we will be phased for our intersect. 0.6 kilometers. I can work with that. This is part of the reason why timing of launches for rendezvous is so tricky, right? So rather than having to do all of this burning to sync your orbits, you just launch at the right time. Go. Gradually realigning for the burn here. I appreciate the math that went into producing all of this. This game is also 10 years old. Something like that. I see some target drift. Okay, I think that's going to do it for that engine. Because the problem was that it was so bulky that you couldn't get around to the burn maneuver quickly enough. So now we're using our primary transit engine. And this thing will turn on a dime. Okay. I think that's good. Disengage autopilot. Okay. Now, our closest approach now. 1.4 kilometers. All right. One more burn, it looks like. We've got 2 intersects. There we go. Perfect. We're done. Okay, now. Intersect is on its way. And It's happening in a minute. If you're wondering where they are now, they're already really close. So now we're going to turn on SAS, and we're going to address our target. Go to... Okay. Now, as this thing is coming in, I want it to be facing whoops. I want it to be facing this thing. Then I need to change this up. First of all, I need to... Whoa, slow down. Slow down. Oh! Okay. So that's not great. I can't revert the flight. Why? Because everybody's not dead? So this thing just went tumbling out of control. No, we didn't. You know what's crazy? We lost a solar panel, but I think we might actually be able to continue the mission. I just need to stabilize. Spin here. Okay. So how we doing? We lost a solar panel. We still have one. Let's open this, control from here, and then we're gonna turn around to address the target. Okay. We're gonna begin heading toward our target here. We're gonna... Okay, we're still facing it, sort of. We're gonna turn the lights on so it's easier to see. Go to docking mode here. In docking mode, the controls change a bit. And basically, I'm just trying to get close enough target. Trying to get close enough that I can lock onto the thing's docking port. Because I have to select it as my target. There we go. Now, slow down. Rotate this guy. Wait, out of power? No. Let's see what we can do about this. All right, now we're getting back to it here. This target says, what is our relative velocity to the target? And I'm using RCS to kind of get ourselves on our way. And I want my trajectory to basically line up with the target. You can kind of see how that's going here. Then I want to slow down eventually. So this symbol has to align with this symbol in order for me to actually make contact. Just burning monopropellant to make this happen. Okay. Now we want to slow down here. I gotta make this happen. This is for sure like the hardest part, is doing rendezvous. So what it's doing now is it's, I believe, nullifying. Yeah, there we go. It's bringing our trajectory into the target. All right, we're closing. And then once this thing gets close enough, whoa. Hmm. So close, yet so far. We take matters into our own hands here. Yeah, I was like, I'm not above firing the rockets quickly to put us right on a trajectory here. Now with docking mode, we'll see, because now these are aligned mostly. Now we gotta slow the heck down. And finally, now that we're getting this close, should be able to select the docking port. There it is. And set that as the target. And then can use our docking autopilot to make that happen. Okay. So a little bit of a bump, but now we're getting into proper alignment finally. So the trick is you have to get close enough to select that docking port. And then once that's done, you're able to actually make this happen. See you, Orbital. Thanks for hanging out. Wait, I'm disabling the autopilot here. I'm doing this myself. Oh, is this engine not activated? That's all monopropellant? Oh no, I have the wrong engine on here. Well, okay. If that's the case, then this mission's going to be a failure anyway. So after all that, womp womp. I was like, why can't this thing engage its engine? Because it has monopropellant and it doesn't have RCS. So close, yet so far. All right. Well, friends, as I said, this is kind of a fun stream, but we're going to head on fall break, and I will be back on the 7th. So until next time, let's see. Let's see if GoPro is streaming or somebody. I encourage you, if you haven't done so in a while, to maybe take some time to rest as well. Always worth doing if you haven't done so in some time. That's not the command. We go to hack list. As you can see, I need a break. So we're gonna raid GoPro. Keep it in the family. But I will be around for support if you need PWST support or things like that. I'll be available on Discord. Feel free to join our Discord, of course. But until next time, which will be a minute from now, but until next time, friends, please be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and happy hacking. We'll see you next time.